Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's here. We've been watching, we've been paying attention, we've been watching as President Donald Trump has went up and down each and every state campaigning to become the 47th president of the United States of America. Now, here we are. Just in a few short days, the American people will go to the polls and, in my opinion, vote for and in the most important election, I believe, not just in my lifetime, but within the last 100 years. When you look at Kamala Harris and Tim Walz and the direction that they want to bring this country, it just shows just how important it is that we get out and vote, and we vote for Donald Trump. One thing that I can honestly say is that I'm so excited to see so many people already going and voting. Today on God and Country, this is exactly what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about the importance of every vote. Some people will say, well, my vote doesn't matter. No, every single vote matters. I have with me today several of my friends, and we're going to be discussing the importance of mobilizing the faithful to vote, mobilizing the Republicans to vote, mobilizing the Christians to vote, and the conservatives, and why every single vote matters. I want to introduce each one of my friends, and then we're going to jump into a conversation just about the vote and why the vote is so important. Of course, we have Reed Cooley, my co-host. Reed, it's good to see you, sir.
Thank you, Dan. Likewise.
You've had a good day?
Yeah, so far, yeah. So I think it's about to get even better with all of our great friends here.
Good. It's good to have Colonel Rob Maness with us. He's been on the show with us before. And Colonel, thanks for coming back, and thanks for joining us today and on God and Country. We really appreciate you joining us tonight to talk about the importance of the vote.
Thanks for having me back. It's an honor to be here and get the chance to talk about this.
Thank you, Colonel. Thanks for being with us. And then, of course, Phil Harding, and my friend. He's a retired Air Force colonel, and he served 30 years, same as Colonel Rob Maness, 30 years in our military, deployed to Iraq twice. And he's been not just involved in the political arena, but very engaged in our military. And Colonel Harding, thank you for being with us today on the show. Really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And then good to have Mr. Pete Wilson. Pete Wilson is a good friend. He's a native. Don't hold this against him, ladies and gentlemen, but he's a native of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and he's a graduate of Washington and Jefferson College. So don't hold that against Pete. And but he's very active in the Republican Party. He's the state chairman for the Harrison County Republican Party, and Mr. Pete is the reason why I got involved in Harrison County in the local politics, because of Pete inviting me to come in. He's also a regional captain for the Convention of States, and he's a very strong believer in the Constitution, and he's been doing work in the Republican Party since 1972. Pete, thanks for joining us today.
Great to be here, Dan. Thank you.
Absolutely appreciate you coming on the show. And then it's good to have Miss Holly Gibbs on the show with us, and she's a mom to 4 boys. She owns her own real estate company and broker, and she's the co-owner of Dickey's Barbecue here in Mississippi and in Florida. And Holly, I'm so glad that you have joined us on God and Country.
Thank you.
And
thanks.
Absolutely. And so we're just going to jump right into God and Country and talking about the importance of the vote. And so, Colonel, I'm going to start with you, Colonel Maness, and just let you kind of give an opening statement and opening challenge, and we'll kind of go back and forth and discuss and talk about the importance of the vote. So, Colonel, we'll start with you.
Well, Dan, we're 7 days out from the most important election of my lifetime, and I'll be 63 years old here in a couple of weeks. And why is it important? It's because one side of this election believes in America, believes in the values of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, would still give their lives to protect those values. And the other side doesn't like freedom, doesn't want you and me to be able to express our ideas, even though some people may disagree with them. They only want their ideas to be expressed. But they don't have any good ideas, so they've resorted back to things like calling people Nazis and that kind of thing. That's why this election in particular is so very, very important. And you're right. Every single vote matters. Every vote counts. These battleground states, the ground game is in full swing. We're heavily involved in Pennsylvania. And mark my words, Pennsylvania, the Keystone State, will be the key to Donald Trump winning this election.
You know, Colonel, I agree. I agree with you on that. Pete, let's come over to you and talk about, your thoughts on this election coming up in just a few short days.
Well, I've got to agree with Rob. This is probably the most important election of my lifetime, and I'm 9 years older than he is. And I've seen a bunch. And what continues to bother me, being a little bit older than the folks in this room, but you may remember the book 1984. Okay. When I was a young kid, we had to read this, and it was kind of almost a joke where, oh, that wouldn't happen. That's science fiction. And believe it or not, Walter Cronkite even did a special in 1984 about the book where the conclusion was, oh, see, this isn't really happening. What I see in the past 10, 15 years, it's really happening. And we're seeing it in this campaign. We've seen it with the persecution of Donald Trump. So, how do we stop this? We win, and we win big.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, Pete, so you would have obviously, I guess all three of you, Manus, Harding, and Pete, all three of y'all would have voted and worked the campaign for Reagan. Would that be correct?
My first vote was for Ronald Reagan.
Your first vote,
Yeah.
and for Ronald Reagan. Awesome. That's pretty awesome. Yeah, that's a good vote for sure. So, what about you, Phil?
Absolutely.
Same, and then of course, I
Voted
know.
twice for Mr. Reagan.
Awesome. And then Pete,
I
you.
started voting for Richard Nixon, so I was well into it by the time Ronald came.
Good. So now we're going to jump over to you, Reed, and so let's just jump right into with you. And what is your opening thoughts of this upcoming election?
Well, it's interesting that you bring up Ronald Reagan, because something that dawned on me earlier today is that I think there are some parallels between this election and the election of 1980 that are worth pointing out here. So, of course, that was the election in which the incumbent, Jimmy Carter, was defeated by Ronald Reagan. I'm seeing a little bit of similarity in the way that Kamala Harris is trying to characterize Donald Trump and the way that the Jimmy Carter campaign was trying to characterize Ronald Reagan, in the months leading up to that election. So right now, Kamala Harris has become very desperate. I think that much is clear. I think perhaps even Kamala Harris seems to believe that Donald Trump is right now poised to win this election. I think they're terrified of that. But right now, Kamala Harris's main strategy is to portray Donald Trump as irresponsible, as incapable of governing. I think you guys who saw the 1980 election, first, up close, I think you guys might have been able to see how Carter in 1980 was trying to portray Ronald Reagan as like this cowboy. He was this actor. He was this movie star. Of course, he's not fit to be president, right? Of course, who won that election? I mean, Ronald Reagan not only defeated Jimmy Carter, it was an absolute landslide. I mean, he just mopped the floor with him. Obviously, I hope we get that same exact kind of result with Donald Trump here. But as Mark Twain said, history doesn't necessarily repeat itself, but it certainly rhymes. I think that we are kind of looking at one of those rhymes take place right now.
Yeah, and I hope you're right, and I would agree, with you. Now, Holly, we're going to come over to you and just kind of get your first take into this election here in just a few short days.
Well, it's going to be really tough. It's going to be very hard. And one of the key things that I wanted to bring up was Kamala Harris and anyone else that has suggested that women need to vote for women. I heard that and I immediately was just appalled at that statement completely. It diminishes the value of a person's qualifications, and it is counterproductive to women's rights completely. And so I'm sitting here listening to this and I'm thinking, what are you standing on? What are you trying to accomplish with that? I mean, you've just set us back decades by really diminishing what we've accomplished by saying, well, you just need to vote for me because I'm a female, not that I'm the best candidate, or not that I have the best views, or I have a track record of lowering, the cost of goods and increasing the small business owners' value in the community. It's more of just vote for me because I'm a female. And that to me says so much about her as a person, her values, her political views. And I'm just appalled that another female would even ride on that. She's not giving us her qualities or her qualifications whatsoever. She's basically saying, I don't think I can win. I just need you to vote for me because I'm a female.
Yeah. And today even she gave her last pitch there in Washington, and she was they had no message, right? I mean, the Democrat Party, I mean, they just keep pointing to, January 6th, insurrection, Donald Trump's a Nazi.
Creating
I mean,
fear.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's
And their
what
message
she's
of the last
pointing
several days has been that we're all Nazis, apparently.
to. Correct.
Yeah, and the contrast is to draw that parallel with the Reagan campaign is one of unity. If you go back and watch the tape from the Madison Square Garden and just watch the last 2 minutes of Mr. Trump's speech, and he talks about how we're Americans. We all bleed the same color blood. We're all together in this. We all want to be prosperous. We all want to be free of oppression, free of censorship. We want to be free of war. That's what we're all together on. It's a message of unity. He has people like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard. Gabbard joined the Republican Party. These are arch Democrats. With Kennedy being from the Democrat dynasty family. That is not a message of division. That's a message of unity, that we're all in the same boat. We're all Americans, and we all do what? We love this country and the values that it stands for. And their message is one of division. Vote for Kamala because she's a woman.
Right.
Vote for Kamala because she's Black. Vote for Kamala because she's Asian.
Don't be afraid to vote as a man for Kamala.
Exactly. So their message is one of division, and they have no ideas that they can sell to the American people. That's why they revert back to the January 6th fake insurrection narrative, and that's her closing message. It's unbelievable that that's their closing message, and it's such a contrast with the unity message of we're Americans. We love this country. We even love the Americans that disagree with us so much they call us Nazis.
Yeah, I agree.
That's a big difference.
The messages are just night and day. When you look at Donald Trump's message, Kamala Harris's message, they're just so different. Holly, I want to jump right to a question with you. How would you, because you brought up the fact about Kamala Harris, and she's telling people, to, vote for me because I'm a woman. And then you had Obama, President Obama telling people to, you should be voting for Kamala because she's Black. And, and I'll tell you, Stephen A. Smith, I'm not sure if y'all saw his take. He does First Take, and he talks about the NBA a lot. Stephen A. Smith he's a sports guy, right? And he's probably not voting for Donald Trump, and maybe he is, maybe he's not. I don't know who he's voting for. But after Barack Obama did say what he said to those group of Black men, how you are to be supporting Kamala because of the color of her skin, Stephen A. Smith went on First Take or on his own show and blasted Obama because he was like, why should anyone vote for anyone because of the color of their skin? We need to vote for people because of what they have accomplished or what they want to do for this country. And it was a really good, I would encourage you to go watch it. It was very, very good. And so, Holly, I want to ask you this question. How would you encourage younger women who may feel disillusioned to see the value in voting? And so how would you encourage, what would you say, to a young, single, 20-year-old or married woman or whoever, just any lady in particular who feels like their vote doesn't count or they just feel disillusioned just from watching everything take place over the last year? How would you encourage a younger woman to vote?
That's a very deep question. You really have to get with someone who's having those feelings and say, listen, there is one true path in this world, and that is claiming your own self-identity. And you need to do that by putting the word out of what it is you want to see in your life, what you want to see your country look like, what you want to see your family raised in. And the only real way to do that is to vote. A lot of people think, well, I'm just one voter. It doesn't matter. I don't have to vote because the masses are going to vote for me. That is not true. If you don't vote, you have no voice. You haven't even expressed your voice. And so becoming empowered and saying, okay, I'm frustrated, I'm disillusioned, I don't understand why they're telling me I should do this because I'm a female. They're taking away my rights of trying to figure out who the best candidate is. You really need to fight back and get your voice and go vote, whichever way you vote. I'm a very big proponent. I know what I want, and I know what I want my children to vote, but I just want you to vote.
Yeah, I agree.
We need to do that as Americans. We need to be very proactive in our future and see what we want. This country is built on greatness. People come here in droves because of how amazing they are and the opportunities we have and how easy it is to, not easy, but how many opportunities you have. You won't have those if you don't vote. It will go away.
Yeah.
Holly, I think you said something there that was very, very important. You talked about becoming an empowered voter. And in order to become an empowered voter, we have to be an educated voter.
That's true.
We have to study the issues. We have to study the positions of the people who are on the ballot. And we have to vote for the things that we believe in. And I'm afraid that far too many of us vote maybe on emotion or just go vote the way we're told.
Well,
The educating ourselves
Yes.
is critically important.
very true. And I do think that that's where some of our younger voters become very frustrated and disenfranchised because they're getting hit from the left and the right. I speak to my sons all the time about it, and they're like, I don't know, who should I vote for? And I'm like, oh, well, that's wonderful. I'm going to tell you to vote for, but that's not the right way to do it.
Right.
And I tell them, you need to go to Twitter, and you should go, oddly enough, you need to go to TikTok, and you should try to stay out of the mainstream media where they're shoving things down your throat left to right. No offense, but they do. You've got one that shoves the right and one that shoves the left, and dig deeper. Go to the pages of these candidates and really see what they're doing. Read the comments and see what's coming from that. That's the young voter. That's where they're getting their news. And so we really need to help them find it on those platforms so that they will become more educated voters.
There are tons of resources out there for that, from online, rating the candidates, having the candidates take surveys on issues. I've run for office once, and a lot of surveys to fill out to get your message out there. And I think some of those are some of the best options you have to educate yourself.
Absolutely.
And to that end, I would also recommend people look at the Ludwig von Mises Institute. And if you guys have heard of the Mises Institute by chance, I mean, to me, that's the real bastion of where the Austrian School of Economics, to translate that into English, that's the greatest defense we have academically for the free market, right? For lower taxes or no taxes, abolishing the income tax. It's really the academic basis that we have for the conservative platform. So I think I think getting your hands on the right kind of academic literature will empower, those kids, these young people my age and younger, to think critically about what it is they're seeing on those candidates' websites. When they go to Kamala Harris's page, they look at her platform and they see that she supports taxes on unrealized capital gains. They can think critically about what it's a bad idea, but they have to understand these ideas. So the Mises Institute is where I would send every young person to learn more about these ideas of why the free market, why conservative principles, why they really do stand up.
I think one thing that we have to do is, and you mentioned it there, is we've got to take the mainstream media with a huge shaker of salt. The mainstream media is in many ways co-opted, and they're pushing a message on us. We've got to go out and search for what we want to find.
Right.
Don't be passive. Don't be passive.
Once upon a time, it was the job of journalists to challenge what it was that the government was telling us. But now it seems like these mainstream journalists in particular, they exist to defend whatever propaganda the government's giving us. I think the role of a journalist in society has been completely and totally inverted over the last 20 to 30 years.
This country started out before the Revolutionary War with citizen journalists, and we have reverted back to citizen journalists. This show, God and Country, is part of the citizen journalist movement. My show, there's 3 of us here that operate in that space right now, and it's because the regime or the propaganda media or whatever you want to call this media that's controlled by governments and by rich people and by political establishment in the parties and everything, they won't push back. They will not question. So now it falls to us, the citizens, and that's what Americans do. And it's fantastic to see it happening right before our eyes. We didn't mention Elon Musk has been brought into this movement, and one of the signs you could see in Times Square in the videos in New York City in the Madison Square Garden thing was "Make the American Dream Great Again."
Yes.
And that's what I want to tell young people. You get all these great resources, your parents, your peers, your colleagues, even your younger siblings, if you will. But you've also got your common sense. Apply common sense to it. The common sense question is, if you're a 28-year-old mother with 2 kids, do you want to have to make a decision between putting gas in your car or buying groceries, or do you want to be able to do both so you can feed and clothe your children and provide for them a better life than your parents had and were able to provide for you. And there's only one candidate in this current race for president that has a proven track record, and this is all just common sense, of being able to do that and has done that. And that's who they need to vote for.
Absolutely. You can only, you're talking about making the American dream great again, is you vote for Donald Trump and we get Donald Trump elected, we'll make the American dream attainable again. And,
Yes,
right now, the American dream is not even attainable for so many because of inflation being at an all-time high, because we have Joe Biden, who may or may not be awake right now. He may or may not be, eating ice cream on a beach somewhere. And you got Kamala Harris, and she just running around and spreading all kind of propaganda. So if you have that, and if you vote for Kamala Harris, and if you elect Kamala Harris, the American dream is not even attainable. And so, but you put somebody like Donald Trump in the White House, you talking about an America First president. I didn't grow up under Reagan. I wasn't born until he was already president. And so I didn't get to vote for Ronald Reagan. I was not even in school yet when he was president. But I could only imagine what kind of person and man he was. Of course, I've watched all of his videos and I've watched his speeches and, done all those things. And I look up to Reagan and really respect and have a lot of love for Reagan, what he did for our country. But I kind of see Donald Trump, he is doing all of those things, and he is going to make the American dream attainable again. So that's why we're here today talking about the vote, is because we need everybody to go and vote. Bill, we were talking about issues a while ago. I want to ask you a question about veterans. You're retired, colonel, from the Air Force. What are some key issues for veterans that should motivate them to get out and vote? And I know that the reason why we have a vote is because of you men, and the ladies that serve this great nation, and the vote that we have. And that is one reason why I believe and the vote is so important, is because of men and women who gave their life so that we could go vote. So Phil, I want to ask you, what are some key issues for veterans that should motivate them to go and vote for Donald Trump?
I think several things that should motivate veterans to go vote for Trump, and probably first and foremost is defending this nation. And we've had decades of not defending our own borders. You can't have a nation without borders.
Right.
And we've allowed the world to come here. Now, we want the world to come here, but we want the world to come here legally, and we want them to become Americans, and we want them to love America as much as we love America. We don't want to turn it into a third world country. We don't want to turn it into a subject of the United Nations. This nation has its own determination. We need to have our own determination on this earth. So I think that's probably the first and foremost, is defending this nation and our sovereign right to exist as a nation. I think several other things from just the values. Military men and women bring some pretty conservative values. They defend the nation. They've gone out there to defend what this nation has done in the past, rather than tearing it down. And we have one party and one group that does not respect America, does not love America. It's quite obvious, because they want to change it into something else. I was appalled when President Obama, shortly after he was elected, said, we're going to fundamentally transform the United States of America. Transform it from what into what? We like America.
Yeah.
We want to keep America. America has been a beacon for the world. We need to keep it.
Yeah, I agree. Colonel Manus, what do you want to add in?
Yeah, in the polling that we do have, a little bit over 60% of veterans and active duty military support President Trump in this election cycle. Is what I just saw a couple of days ago. So the majority is there, and there's a couple of reasons why, in addition to what Phil just talked about. One is the accountability. I sat behind President Trump in Fayetteville, North Carolina, a few weeks ago at a veterans town hall. The room had 5,000 families and active duty and veterans from the Fort Bragg community in Fort Bragg, North Carolina, right there in it. And he was asked a question about accountability for the generals and admirals that made the horrendous decision and didn't try to do anything to stop President Biden from signing the order to withdraw from Afghanistan in the terrible way that that happened and got those 13 American service members killed unnecessarily, I might add. The veterans see that. And what President Trump said to the answer to that question to this captain that was forced out of the military due to the COVID-19 vaccine mandate, he said, I'll tell you what we're going to do. Anybody that touched that decision that was in uniform or a civilian, senior civilian in the Department of Defense, we're going to fire their asses. That's a quote. Fire their asses. That's what
From Donald Trump?
That's what Donald Trump said. I was 3 feet from him when he said it. And he means it. You know, this man is sincere. And he what he knows is that we have a problem because as the Department of Defense and the military goes, so goes the country.
Absolutely.
And the veterans, that 60+% of veterans that support him in this political campaign, also see that. That's why just a couple of days ago, 200 generals and admirals signed a letter endorsing Donald Trump. And these are generals and admirals that kept their oaths to the Constitution, not the generals and admirals like Mark Milley who broke their oaths to the Constitution that are supporting Kamala Harris. So those are big deals.
Well, that's very telling because, I mean, I never served in the military, but my understanding from my brother being a Marine and family members, your dying oath is to the nation. Like, you never go against the president or the nation, correct? As a military member.
No, our oath
You
is to the
uphold it.
Our oath is to the Constitution of the United States.
Right.
We actually
But for them to
expect
go against
we
and
expect
actually
our
endorse
senior
something.
officers to question orders that they think are illegal.
Exactly.
That's what we train our people to do. We even train our lowest enlisted people to question an order that they may think is unlawful. And the tradition of that goes back to things like the Holocaust in Nazi Germany, where soldiers and officers were not questioning orders that they knew were wrong. So we expect them to do that. And for people like Milley, General Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, that Donald Trump appointed and was operating under Joe Biden, that did not try to stop all the way to the point of resigning publicly this Afghanistan withdrawal. They got all these people killed and left billions of dollars of military equipment in the hands of our enemies, by the way, that are being used to train forces to come at us again as we speak. He should have questioned that. He should have resigned in protest over it. It was that bad of a decision, and he did not because he went with his political issues, and he chose not to do that instead of keeping his oath to the Constitution. We take an oath to the Constitution because we don't want our people taking an oath to an individual. All this talk about President Trump demanding a loyalty oath personally to himself is a lie. All the people around him that have been in the rooms when that types of thing has been discussed have said that is a lie. That's because he knows that his oath is to the Constitution of the United States. That's why we are not sworn to a group of individuals. We're not sworn to an idea of even a nation. It's the idea in that document that is underpinned by the values that I talked about from the Declaration of Independence. That is the reason why this country exists and why Phil said, well, who the heck is Barack Obama to want to transform America? Our blood, our colleagues and friends and families, sons and daughters and yours is in dirt all across this land and around this world protecting that Constitution. We don't want it to be transformed because that's what guards us against people like Kamala Harris and those that are supporting.
Thank you for that clarification. There is miscommunication out there, especially among young voters, on what
Exactly.
that, what place the military has in that. And so that was very
Absolutely right.
insightful.
One thing I want to add to my senior military friends here. We still have enemies in this world. We're not fighting them now, but it wouldn't take too much more weakness on the part of the United States for military operations
True.
to start, whether it's the Chinese, whether it's the Iranians, whether it's the Russians. There are powerful military forces that are against us. When we had strong presidents, okay, we overcame all of these. Okay? Who ended the Cold War? Okay? Why? It was ended because we were stronger. Okay? when Donald Trump was president before, how many wars were we in?
No new wars were started.
No new wars
It
were
was
started
ended.
because they were afraid of Donald Trump. Can you imagine anybody afraid of Kamala?
No.
And
No.
to get back to the question of young people, Pete, your point is exactly right on target. Young people, and I talked to a Gen Zer just in the last 48 hours about this, they see that Donald Trump didn't get us into any new wars, ended the one through force and strength that we were in by destroying that caliphate that was in Iraq and Syria that was growing. And none of the other powerful nations that are our peers or near peers, like Russia or China, made a move at all because of him. And that's what they want. They want to see a reestablishment of peace through strength, where we're establishing deterrence against China. And they see that China is our greatest threat, and that we need to stand up to them, or we'll continue down this path that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have us on, where we're right at the brink of potentially a nuclear World War III because of the poor decisions that they've made, because they've listened to the wrong people that haven't been true to the oaths to the Constitution.
So let me ask y'all a question. 3 military men. If Donald Trump was president, do you think Putin would have ever invaded Ukraine?
No.
No, absolutely not.
If Donald Trump was president, would North Korea have just sent 12,000 troops to Russia?
No, North Korea wasn't even firing their missiles.
Well, they just sent 12,000 troops
And they've
to
been firing
Russia.
their missiles at Japan for years.
Yeah.
Then you have Hamas attacking Israel. You have that breakout.
It would never have happened.
Yeah, all of these things happening. And everything that they said Donald Trump was going to do, start wars, nuclear wars, we can't let him have the red box. All of the things that they said he was going to do, he did not do. And everything that they said he was going to do, they did.
Yes, exactly.
We have new wars.
Exactly.
We have Russia invading Ukraine. You have China doing their thing. You have Hamas murdering and cutting off the heads of innocent people in Israel. You have all hell breaking loose all over. And we are on the brink of World War III.
We are.
I mean, we are right. I mean, just not far away from it if some things don't happen. And I believe that if Donald Trump's not elected, and I'm not trying to scare anybody, I'm just stating facts and what I believe. I believe if Donald Trump's not elected in November, I think that by January or February, we'll be in an all-out world war, is what I think.
You're absolutely right. The facts support you. All that needs to happen is for China to invade Taiwan if Donald Trump were to lose. And at that moment of weakness, Joe Biden can't be the commander-in-chief. Kamala Harris won't be the commander-in-chief. And the people that are in charge making the decisions are the unelected military officers and civil servant bureaucrats running the United States government. And they can't make a decision fast enough to save their lives. Look what happened in Afghanistan. All you have to do is point to the facts of what history tells us, and we will be in an extremely bad position. And that will be the trigger that triggers World War III, because all the rest of the chess players on the board, you mentioned them, Russia, Iran, all the proxy forces for Iran, everything, everybody that's supporting Russia are all lined up. 12,000 North Korean soldiers are in Russia right now getting ready to go fight against the Ukrainians. All of it is lined up. It just needs one more trigger.
Yeah, and I think that if Kamala Harris is elected, I think the trigger is going to get pulled. That's what I think. I think we're going to be an all-out world war.
My biggest fear.
That's mine too.
And there's going to be thousands and thousands of people that are
And
going
the
to lose their
Gen Z
life.
generation knows that it's going to be their bone, muscle, and blood and guts spread on that dirt and in those seas, having to go fight in a war that was totally unnecessary. Just like the war in Ukraine was totally unnecessary. Just like the attack on Israel and the war in the Middle East was totally unnecessary, and would have been prevented had Donald Trump been in office.
Yeah, I agree.
But Dan, we've talked a lot about the military situation here and our situation with influence and power in the world. But I think there's another part of this. That is economic power. We've ceded our economic power.
Yes.
And we have others even trying to supplant the American dollar as the world's reserve currency. And we have a group of nations. Some of them are supposed friends who are all aligned to try to do that. And if that happens, we won't have much of a chance of rebuilding a military or competing in a hot war anywhere,
Yeah,
in my opinion.
we're on the precipice of failing to deter China completely in the Communist Party there because of our manufacturing capability that we've essentially spent 4 decades giving away. For example, the Chinese can build 17 merchant marine ships, the stuff that we use to move people and resources around that you have to control the Pacific Ocean. They can build 17 to R1. 17 to R1. And we live right here on the coast of Mississippi where ship manufacturing is. We need 3 more ship manufacturers right here on the coast of Mississippi to go with the ones that we already have, like Ingalls Shipbuilding, in order to build the merchant marine fleet that could give us the ability to adequately deter China. And we have to have a capability on the level that we had in World War II in that theater of operations, the Pacific and India theater of operations, in order to do that. And we're not even close. As a matter of fact, the Navy just mothballed 12 or 17 sea lift ships, merchant marine type ships, because of lack of crews. So we've got a long ways to go to fix it. We can do it, but it's got to be done quickly. We need men like Trump. We need him to recruit men like Elon Musk, which he is, Howard Lutnick, and those kind of folks, Robert F. Kennedy, Gabbard. We need all those people in order to do basic things like become the manufacturing behemoth that we were before World War II, that can deter China instead of getting into a World War III. But if we had to go into a World War III, we would have the manufacturing base to be able to win like we did in World War II. We aren't there.
Escape to Pearl River Resort.
Well, and if Kamala Harris wins, we'll never get there.
No,
I mean,
Not at all.
we'll never get there. So we have to have, Donald Trump. I want to transition to another question to Pete about Pete's the chairman of the Harrison County Republican Party, and there's going to be people that's going to watch this show they're involved and they're engaged in their local party. And I believe strongly in the importance of the local party and getting involved in local politics, whether it's your local council race, local mayoral race, supervisor, sheriff, mayor, then also the local party, the actual party. And a lot of people don't understand that the Republican Party and the other parties, they have their own elections, electing chairmen, presidents, executive committee members, board members, treasurers, secretaries, and things of that nature. So, Pete, I want to ask you about the Republican Party, and because I believe that people are to get involved, people are to get more engaged in their local party. But what is something that the Republican Party in Harrison County is doing or has done in the past whenever it comes to help as far as getting out the vote and help getting people, getting out the message of the Republican Party? Because I know that there's a lot of things going on right now with the Republican Party as far as, in Harrison County having poll watching training and all of those type of things are going on right now. So what is something, Pete, that you have seen that has been successful in that as far as working with the Republican Party for many, many years?
What we started 27 years ago, and I was one of the initial worker bees in this, was really our Republican Club. The best thing that we can do typically, because we don't have a media budget, but is word of mouth. So we started our monthly lunches. You think, how big is that? Well, sometimes we can have as many as 100 to 110 people. Normally we have around 70 or 80. We have the speakers talking about the issues. They're talking to the people directly. Those people are going to talk to 2 or 3 or 4 more. And so, we do want to get the ball rolling in that area. We do our social events as well. As you know, we're going to be doing one this week, where, once again, we try and fire up the people. I think word of mouth is really the most effective way of doing it. unless we have $1 million advertising budget. And if we can figure out a way to do that, I'll get it started. But seriously, for people to see when you have a luncheon where there's 80 people and they may cover 4 different municipalities down here. Oh, okay. So we have people like that over in Biloxi. We have people like that over in Gulfport. We have people like that over in Long Beach. So they know that, they are part of a larger base. And that really and truly helps. A few years back, and Phil was a big help with me on that, we started our permanent headquarters, where people can come and get paraphernalia. We have provided a few Trump signs to the Gulf Coast of Mississippi.
More than a few.
Yeah, more than a few, and flags and T-shirts and decals and everything like that. But people can come in and talk about the issues. And we have had some people that really came in that had some issues they really wanted to talk about. Now, did we please them all 100%? No, but they knew that there was a place to come where they could vent their concerns. And that has helped. And we've had more and more people now, coming into the headquarters. So, that's one thing that I recommend some sort of an office for, any county to have. And even if you're open 2 days a week, just so people know that they can come and vent, if you will. But the social events, we've influenced, I would say hundreds or maybe even a few thousand people.
But Pete, it's not just coming to vent. It's also coming to get information.
Yes.
The headquarters provides information on how to register to vote, where to vote, when to vote. We provide information on the candidates. The candidates provide their literature, their push cards, things like that, and we have those available at the headquarters so people can educate themselves. We also have a small lending library there with a lot of great books in it that folks could read if they want to dig in a little deeper. And we also have resources where we can contact legislators within the state and other officials and help folks just interact with our government a little bit more voice their concerns a little bit more loudly.
Heck, we even had a Democrat come in one day.
Well, we've had a few, Todd. We've had a few.
Well, and also, I think it's important to mention that we have the teen group, we have the ladies group, and we have a lot of diverse groups. And so if you're hesitant to come in to just speak with someone, a volunteer, and you want to be more involved on a different level, there's a lot of diversity in our club. We encourage anyone and everyone who wants to have the information to become involved. We have a space for you.
Yes.
I think it's really important to say that because collectively we've all done a lot to make that happen.
Mm-hmm.
We even have a Hispanic group has been getting organized lately.
Yeah,
That's right.
that's very important. That population is growing a lot here.
There is.
And we have a big military population here, too, Dan, and when I spent 30 plus years in the military, so Phil, that honestly, I wasn't active in local politics pretty much anywhere I was at. And you know what? It really is true that local action has national impact. And we've had people that are still on active duty come into the headquarters and have to take the opportunity just to come in and chat and ask questions. And I think that's great to have that. I agree with Pete. Every county party should have one, have an office of some.
So I'm glad you mentioned that because, Colonel, that was my next question to you. And you mentioned it. And so we're going to dive into that discussion because Phil talked about the importance of voting earlier. And so now I'm going to ask the question, why is it important for military families and veterans to be politically active? Now, I believe everyone should vote, but I also think that people are to be as politically active as they possibly can be. I think you are to get involved in the local party, get involved in what's happening in your state, get involved in what's happening in your city, in your county, get involved on every level, not just Washington, D.C., but get involved in every area. So why is it important for military families and veterans to be politically active?
Especially today when there's such a divide in the way people believe in the country, it's critically important. And look, to be honest with you, there are certain rules that military members have to follow that that may limit them and their ability to interact with a political party specifically for certain types of events. And they just need to follow those rules, but nothing precludes them. Like we had that one young man not too long ago come in and talk to us. Nothing precludes them from connecting with their political party, coming and speak to us, coming to events. They just need to follow the policies and rules that their service sets down. You know, and they're pretty mundane. Usually, it's like you can't be in your uniform when you go to a partisan event and those kinds of things. So just do that. But I highly recommend it. You know, the culture of the all volunteer force is that we come from our homes of record, and most of us, for at least most of my career, I voted at my home of record, which was up in West Tennessee, where my parents are from. So I was active in the sense that I knew what was going on because I had family members that were county commissioners, on school boards, highway commissioners, and those kind of things. So I knew what was happening, and I knew who to vote for in that sense. But I wasn't ever active with a political party because I wasn't there physically most of the time, and it's very difficult to do that. But if you're at a base that's like here at Harrison County, Mississippi, we have such a large population, come on down to the Republican Party headquarters because we want to talk to you. We want you to come talk to us no matter what state or home of record you're from, because more than likely you're going to vote right here if you decide to stay here, and a lot of people do stay here. So we want to interact with you. And number two, we want to know why you support a certain policy or a certain candidate. And we want to tell you about what we're working on to help you with certain policies and what candidates may be offering for you. Because every candidate, like Donald Trump, he has a direct impact, his policies do, on your lives. Look, the community care as part of the Mission Act that Donald Trump enacted, I still use it today. I don't have to go to a VA medical facility, which we have one here that's pretty good. I can go right down the street to an urgent care with no hassle whatsoever. That's all due to a policy that Donald Trump put into place that Barack Obama fought against and that Joe Biden wants to do away with already. That's the kind of reason why you need to pay attention as to who you're voting for, what their policy stances are, and the best place to do that and start from is at the local level, because we're the ones that have the base of knowledge that you're going to need when you're setting out to find out about those kinds of things.
You know, I love to hear what our military are thinking, you know, who they're going to vote for. And my brother Caleb, he's in the Marines, and he's texted a couple of times here in the last hour, you know, or two, and you know, and so he's a very strong supporter of Donald Trump, obviously. And so, but I love to hear what our military are thinking. I love to hear the fact that over 60% are planning on voting for Donald Trump. I mean, that's good. You know, whenever I look at DC and I see some of the leaders in our military, you know, with this whole DEI thing, you know, to where you have this transgender, you know, up there, and it just, when the world looks at that, I mean, do you think Vladimir Putin gets nervous about some transgender dude up in Washington, D.C. who's supposedly in charge of certain branches of our military? You think he loses sleep over that?
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
We're the laughing stock of the world.
Basically, laughing stock of the world.
World's, the world's most capable armed force is the laughing stock of the world, and that puts the entire globe into a very precarious situation. It gets back to that on the brink of World War III. You know, the U.S. government, your tax dollars and mine, we're spending over $114 million a year on DEI policy, and we're doing things like reducing the number of white men that are accepted into pilot training in favor of people because of the color of their skin or their gender identity, even though by merit, they may not be as capable. That is the wrong way to go, and it destroys what's really required to win on the battlefield, teamwork, because DEI forces young people to look at each other based on the color of their skin or their gender and decide under these theories called critical race theory, whether one is part of the oppressed group or the oppressor group. And think people like white males are named as the oppressor group. They're born that way is what the theory says, and they can never change it. Well, if I've got a white officer leading a squad of 4 black men, and they're questioning their leader, and they're going up a hill to take a position from the enemy and take an enemy fire, They have to be able to trust each other completely, 100%, no matter what rank they are, no matter what their position is. And if we have built in inherent mistrust of each other based on an immutable characteristic, something as silly as melatonin levels in your skin, we do ourselves a disservice and we set our country up for extreme failure. And that's what DEI represents. And that's why Donald Trump is committed to eliminating DEI altogether. As a matter of fact, a young officer at that Fayetteville town hall I was at was sitting next to me, got to ask him a question about that because he was fired from his commander job when he called the services out for following these policies. And Donald Trump said, I'm not only going to fix it, I'm going to set up a task force and I'm going to put you on the task force, this young man who has had to leave the service, and lead it so we can eliminate DEI completely from all of our services, which is a big job to get done. And he committed to that right then and there. That's the kind of leader he is, and that's the kind of perspective he has on the armed forces and how important he knows it is to go away from DEI and back to the traditional American way of looking at military service, and that is one of extreme teamwork, no matter where you come from. We all have the same color of blood.
Absolutely. And I don't care. I don't care what color a person's skin is. I don't care what gender they are, male, female. I want the best person for the job.
Exactly.
And it doesn't matter to me. I could care less. I want the best person for the job.
That's exactly what the Democratic Party wants to fight against, though.
Absolutely, they do.
And,
And
I've
that's
talked to
the
a lot of men that have fought together on the battlefield, and they all say the same thing. We didn't fight for our country. We were fighting for the lives of our friends right next to us and behind us and in front of us.
Yeah.
And they trust each other absolutely to 100%. Even to this day, if you talk to a World War II combat veteran, that you will see and hear that trust. And it doesn't matter whether they're black, white, red, and all of those groups fought in World War II. And I've talked to all of them, from Code Talk, Navajo Code Talkers, to black men that flew with the Tuskegee Airmen, to white officers that went in on the beach at D-Day. And they all say the same exact thing. We fought and died for each other.
Yep.
Is what the bottom line is. And if they don't trust each other like we're teaching today, then we're setting ourselves up for national
Absolutely.
failure.
We have 5 minutes left. And so, Holly, I want to ask you a question, because I'm really excited about, I like to see, women getting involved and getting more engaged and running for office. And I'm hoping that, down the road, I'm not going to ask you here today on the show, but I'm hoping down the road, you'll run, for office. I know you're going to be the next president of the Harrison County Republican Club, and which I'm very excited about. And I'm going to say this, and y'all might not agree or even like what I'm about to say, but I'm kind of hoping and thinking that Tulsi Gabbard potentially could be the first lady president of America. Is kind of what I think down the road after J.D. Vance. I think if J.D. Vance will be the next president after Donald Trump, I think he'll pick Tulsi Gabbard as his VP. And then I think J.D. Vance to do 8 years. I think it'll be Tulsi Gabbard. That's what I think.
You said, right?
I'm kind of thinking Sarah Huckabee because she's gotten that executive experience.
Maybe, but that's just that's just my own personal.
bench.
Yeah.
We
We
really
do.
do.
We do.
Bench.
We
have a
do.
deep bench.
And so, Holly, what would you say to the women that are watching about, some of them thinking, I should or shouldn't get involved? What would you say to them?
I would say you absolutely should get involved. I mean, if the thought has rested for even a moment in your mind of whether or not you need to be involved, the answer is yes. It is always yes. It is so important, I think, for anyone, not just women, but for any able-bodied person to find their place and to go after what they believe in and to help rebuild the country in a more positive way. And so I would say you just need to get plugged in and expand your sphere of influence. Come sit down with like-minded individuals and figure out where exactly you want to be, whether it's school board or city council, or you want to run for Senate, or whatever it is that you want to run for. If it's ever rested on your mind, it's in your heart and you need to do it. And it's just very important. I think we all need a lot of more diversity, a lot more individuals who are trying to push the country in the same direction in a positive way and unravel the last 4 years of chaos that we've had in the economy and in the household and in our just basic fabric of, being an American citizen. We've had that interrupted for the last 4 years. And as a mother of 4 boys, I'm very...
Well, 5, really.
Well, Yeah, true. Oh, we just got another male dog, so 6. Yeah. It's very discouraging to me to have to constantly explain to my boys, you're seen differently. You're not seen as a positive individual anymore, and you have to fight that. And so empower yourselves and empower your wives and empower your girlfriends and empower your friends to make those moves and to have your voice heard. But that is the only way we make change, is if you are heard and you're saying it consistently and concisely and in the right places.
Good. I like that.
Yeah.
We're almost out of time. So we have about 30 seconds for each person to give a closing statement or anything that you would like to say as we end. And, it's just not too long before the election. And so, Reed, I'm going to start with you.
I think this was our best ever episode of God and Country. I love it. Everybody had amazing things to say. You guys engage in local politics. All politics is local, so God bless you. And so that sounds awesome. I appreciate all of you being here. Once again, great episode. So just thanks.
Colonel?
Thanks for having me. And just to bring it back full circle for what Holly just talked about, you remember she used words like unified and diverse. And that's because when you look at the pictures from the stage in Madison Square Garden and from the crowd inside and outside the building, you see all of us, all Americans, unified, Jewish people, Muslims, dark people with brown melanin and light-skinned people and Asian people, all of us together, unified, marching to what? We're not marching to the tune of a guy named Donald Trump. We're marching to the values of the United States of America: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Amen.
I would have to say, go vote. Your future depends on it. Your family's future depends on it. The nation's future depends on it. And the future of the world depends on you going to vote this election. Go vote.
Pete?
Agree with these two, but I do want to make one point. Donald Trump is a genuine hero. He doesn't get enough credit for that. What he has withstood the past 8 years, and yet he keeps on going. The man is a hero, and I admire him as well as support him.
I would agree with that completely. I mean, this is a businessman who had no real, desire to be a politician whatsoever, but he's fighting life and limb for this country. I mean, he's was shot, supposedly shot again, right? There was a whole other report about that. And he knows how important it is. He knows where we need to be. Small businesses are being crunched out. Family values are being challenged. The church is being challenged. Schools are being challenged. And it's just not the way the America is supposed to go. That's not how America is supposed to be. And I appreciate him putting himself and his family in the line of fire to try to get us back on track. And I would ask that everyone go out and vote. No matter which way you vote, you need to have your voice heard, and you need to try to turn all of this around.
Thank y'all for joining in. Thank y'all for coming on. Like I agree with Reed. I've enjoyed this very much. Sitting around, drinking coffee, drinking sweet tea, and just talking about things that truly matter. Because as all of you have very well said, this is the most important election of our lifetime. And ladies and gentlemen, as you watch this episode, you only have just a couple of days until November 5th. And so I want to encourage you not just to go vote, but bring somebody with you to the polls. Talk to your friends and family at church. Make phone calls. Talk to your neighbors. Talk to the people that you work with. Talk to everybody that you know. Post on social media. Post it everywhere. Remind people. I know some of you have already voted, but remind people on Tuesday to go and vote. It's very, very important, especially, every state, but especially in those 7 swing states. We need to make sure that we get everybody that we can to the polls. As I say every time I end, thank you for watching God and Country. I appreciate it very much. The social media platforms they're not big fans of conservative podcasts, conservative news like this, God and Country. So we rely a lot on you to help get out our message. If you're watching this on Facebook, share. If you're watching this on X, retweet it. If you're watching it on Substack, share it. Whatever platform, YouTube, share it. Whatever platform you're watching, help us get out our message, the message of life, the message of liberty, and the message of the pursuit of happiness for all Americans. As we've all said many, many times, and I'll just say it one more time, be sure to go and vote November 5th. May God bless you, and may God continue to bless the great United States of America.
Hey guys, it's Reed here. I don't say this about a lot of people, but I have to say Mike Lindell is a real patriot, and we could not be more thankful to him and MyPillow for sponsoring today's episode of God and Country. Remember, go to MyPillow.com and save huge on a great night of sleep by entering the promo code Midnight Ride. Thanks.